I wish I could support it, but I can't support it the way it's configured now. But I worry that the project that's been started now and that people are supporting in Congress from our delegation, people of Hawaii can't afford it.
Sure.
Let's not put the onus of responsibility
on one person.
On Councilmember Anderson, when the onus is that, if you think about it, it's on us. Now, the caller, in 2008, at a 53 to 47 majority, the steel wheel on steel rail advanced. Now, in 2008, do you really believe the Federal Transit Administration that the position would be until the full funding grant agreement was signed in 2012, 4 years later, caller, 4 years later, do you believe that the federal government had said in that 4-year duration, you, the people, the taxpayers, no matter what pans out, you're locked in and you have no right of remedy, recourse to, quote, petition for a waiver and amend the full funding grant agreement? Do you think we were locked in for 4 years?
No. No.
So this is not a good way to do the job. You have no money to construct the rail. And who's going to pay for the interest? You're going to mortgage our kids, continue mortgage our kids' future? We're exporting our kids beside our trash. That's our #1 export.
It's a 2-minute snippet of him on November 2nd, 2011, proclaiming that when of his multiple trips to D.C., Hesh, that on this particular one, before this hearing, that we, the people, had no right for recourse or remedy on Governor Lingle's report. And that if we were to allow the people to react to that report and say, something's amiss, Councilman Anderson says we'll forfeit everything. So, hear it for yourself.
Okay. I've asked the question of the FTA that if, for some reason, this body should place on the 2012 general election ballot a question regarding Honolulu's mass transit project, and if that question should be in conflict with the 2008 ballot question regarding steel on steel that passed, could we perhaps be in jeopardy of the federal government requiring Honolulu to reimburse the upwards of $200 million that the federal government has given us thus far for our project? The answer from the FTA was yes. They would come back to Honolulu and they would require us to repay every cent that they have given us thus far for this project. Mr. Chairman, that's a grave concern for me. And that's not a hypothetical, Mr. Chairman. That's a definitive. The federal government has assured me that if, in fact, a charter amendment like this passes, they will indeed come back and require us to repay them. That's not an assumption. It's a fact. It came from the FTA themselves. In light of that fact, Mr. Chairman, I'm unable to support this particular measure moving forward at this time. I think the implications are great. I believe that it's a certainty that the federal government will in fact require Honolulu and our taxpayers to reimburse them for the federal monies that have been expended on our project thus far. And Mr. Chairman, those consequences will be dire to the people of the city and county of Honolulu. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I will not be able to support this going forward at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. What he basically said was he spoke with people at the FTA, Federal Transportation Authority, and they informed him that should Hawaii try to opt out of steel on steel, the feds would reclaim the $200 million they gave to Hawaii. So, these are emails that I printed out with my correspondence to Pinocchio Anderson. So I would like to read what happened. I sent him my first email on Monday, and I said, on Saturday, February 28th, Tom Berg will be a guest on my show discussing the rail fraud. Disclosing who made and where the statement can be found substantiated in writing that we had no right to decide what rail system we wanted on the Guideway in 2011 without some sort of penalty locking us in for 4 years from the 2008 vote for the steel-on-steel to the FFGA signing in 2012. If you cannot explain this or cannot name the individual, we can only assume it was your lie made to make people believe something you knew that we did not. Hopefully, you will call in and explain why you should not be labeled a liar. Health Talk, Saturday morning, 8 to 9, KWAI. The call-in number, 524-1080. Have a nice week, and hopefully we'll see you on the radio. The response from Pinocchio. You may label me what you like. I am not legitimizing your show by participating in this rubbish. Only 2 people, you and Tom, will be listening to your show on Saturday, and I have no intention of being the cause of increasing your audience to 3. This is an insult to every one of you that are hearing this right now. I responded and said I would think it would be better to aspire to be an honest person instead of a wannabe. One always has the choice. I said, who at the FDA said what, and where is the document of proof to back up your statement, which will be played on my show?
The Council also approved a resolution to send 4 of its members to D.C. to meet with the Federal Transit Administration. One of the questions to be asked, is it too late for Honolulu to change technology for its mass transit system?
In all of the discussions with FTA officials in D.C. that I've had, and I've had many, I have every reason to believe from what I've heard thus far that no, we cannot change technologies.
Last chance to put your money where your big mouth is. Response. Am extremely tied up with real issues and much too busy to be bothered with your rubbish. And he addressed it to Hash, H-A-S-H. Now, he still hasn't dealt with the issue of who he spoke with. And in my opinion, if I made a statement here and I said, I heard there was going to be a blizzard tomorrow, and someone said to me, who told you that? And I said, well, I was talking with Bob at the studio, and Bob told me there will be a blizzard tomorrow. And I said, well, Bob at K108 told me that. You could then pick up the phone and you could say, Bob, did you tell Hesh there's going to be a blizzard tomorrow? And Bob would say, yeah, I did. Okay, sure, done, over. No discussion, right? But here's a guy, he says, Hash, am extremely tied up with real issues, because lying is not a real issue. You got that? And much too busy to be bothered with your rubbish. So I wrote back, I said, first of all, it's Hesh. And second of all, after Saturday, many, many people will be fed up with your trash and hopefully get rid of you next time around. Not having the guts to defend what you said and cite the alleged sources you referred to is the worst of the worst pilau. And what's worse is only a liar and a coward runs and hides. It's okay if you don't defend yourself. The people who elected you will know the horrible mistake they made by you not owning up. He writes back and he writes, Hash or Hesh, whatever. The people who elected me did so by an overwhelming majority, twice. Assure you, I am not hiding. I owe you absolutely nothing. If I choose to oblige you with my time, it'll be on my terms at a time and place of my choosing. So I wrote back and I said, yo, Pinocchio, what is the name of the person at the FDA that said the federal government would make Hawaii pay back $200 million?
They would come back to Honolulu and they would require us to repay every cent that they have given us thus far for this project.
You said it. I have it on tape. The people will hear it on Saturday. If you did not lie, you should have no problem saying who told you that. Now, I was right to the point. I didn't make anything up. All I want to know was, who told you this? That's all. Why do I want to know who told you this? Because I would then call someone at the Federal Transportation Authority, and I would say, did you say such and such? And they would say, yeah, I did. And I would say, okay, fine. Then I don't have a problem with Ikaika Anderson. Last night, because I sent out emails to our two senators in Congress, to Tulsi Gabbard, to politicians, senators here in the state, to the governor and the mayor, and I received a phone call from Senator Mike Gabbard's office. And what I was informed of was, in the county charter, the Honolulu County or City Charter, Section 28 says, this was in the beginning, should we adopt a rail system, the format that we have to go with is steel on steel, unless the people wish to modify the charter and change the option. So why then didn't Mr. Know-it-all, Pinocchio Ikaika Anderson, research that for himself and find that out? Why, when he made that testimony, which you heard at the City Council?
I believe that it's a certainty that the federal government will in fact require Honolulu and our taxpayers to reimburse them for the federal monies that have been expended on our project thus far.
Why didn't he say, because it's in the charter, I cannot support a change? Why didn't he say, even though it's in the charter, it can still be left up to the people to make a change? Why he didn't say that was because he doesn't give a crap about the people. See, now I can only speculate by saying we are looking at kickbacks all the way down the line. Okay, so the issue here is, why would Ikaika Anderson lie in the first place? Why doesn't he have the wherewithal to even do his own homework? Why could he not find out that there was something in the charter that defined the terms? And if he did find that out, which he never bothered to do, why wouldn't he tell the people that it's up to the people to change if they want to change? To me, I see fraud all the way down the line. I see kickbacks. I see payoffs. I don't have any proof of that. But if a person is a liar is a liar, you can't trust him. If a guy can't be honest, if a guy can't do his homework, what kind of an idiot elects a super idiot to an office to represent the people? This guy does not represent the people. He is representing corporations. And if you represent a corporation, guess what winds up in your back pocket? Little green things with faces on it. That's what winds up. I got a caller, 524-1080. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi, Hesh. Pinocchio, archaic Anderson. Yeah, he's one of the biggest liars. I was at the hearings where they had to remember sit and lie laws. You get it? Sit and lie. That's what he does a lot.
I just came back from Washington, D.C., and I also met with the FTA, as well as appropriations representatives from both the House and the Senate. And I just wanted to affirm the representations of the Vice Chair. Should we choose to revisit this project in any way whatsoever, it's seen as a lack of confidence on Honolulu's part for this project.
At this particular juncture, although we'll ask the question again, I don't think we're going to hear anything different than we've heard in the past, that at this stage of the project, we cannot change the technology.
That contract is in stone, just as Mayor Caldwell said, and the council members, 4 of them that went to D.C., they're still there. They've portrayed this on the news that, well, folks, we've looked into the switching of this rail technology, but we're locked in because we signed an agreement. That's my point, Hesh, of playing Councilmember Anderson at 2011, is that we, the people, should be outraged. We were denied the right in this whole play of branches of government. It was our responsibility to show up at that hearing, which many did. It was, however, in bad faith when Councilmember Anderson, here's now where we get into the rules of the full funding grant agreement, Hesh, if I may, is that why are we here talking about this? Why would we sit there and go back in time? That's not getting us anywhere. Well, the point is in the rules of the full funding grant agreement, it has a clause in there that if the contract, called the full funding grant agreement, was advanced in bad faith or misrepresented, it was my claim, my complaint, that on November 2nd, 2011, of that hearing, Councilmember Anderson gave misinformation, misrepresented the terms, because as I just said, we already have to plead with the federal government, don't penalize us, because we have to change the operational date. We didn't have our finances in order. Now, I'm going to come full circle back to Governor Lingle's report. She said back then on December 2nd in that report of 2010.
But the governor says before she can sign off on rail, the state needs to review all 13,000 public comments on the project, as well as do an independent financial review.
And the monies you're taking from the bus, the feds won't agree to it. Well, let's fast forward. We're 5 years into it down the road, and the council hasn't still figured out how to make amends on that same issue of the bus money. So what are they gonna do, Hesh? They're going to extend the tax, maybe do property taxes.
Well, that's what they want to do. They want to extend the tax 25 years.
But the recourse is, all of us listening to this could say, wait a minute, I'm holding up my hand now. The statute of limitations is no longer in play, because when the council members used taxpayers' dollars to revisit this and said, we're going there to actually ask the very question, can we switch the rail technology to another? Bam. That opens this up for any class action suit, any recourse we, the people, want. We could say to the FTA, I'm holding up Councilmember Anderson's testimony here under oath when he was sworn into office. All we're asking to put this to rest, and I hope people call in, is Councilmember Anderson, on November 2nd when you made the statement, I and my staff banged on your door and said, who did you talk to? And for the next 3 years, I've been doing it. I've been contacting the FTA and everybody under the sun, and guess what? They all said, you signed a contract in December of 2012, meaning you always had reserved the right to switch your rail system at all times without penalty. And that's why no one's coming forward, Hesh, to refute, rebut me at all.
understand it from the FTA, Peter Rogoff himself, says any change to the system at this point will cause us to have to redo the EIS.
But Lingle says changes can be made, adding the federal government is asking too.
I don't believe it can live up to what it says about paying for itself. And the federal government doesn't believe it either. And that's why they have forced them to rewrite their financial plan.
As governor, Lingle supported the initial concept of rail, later expressing concerns about the cost and impact, and signing a petition to put rail back on the ballot.
But I think the reality is the time to express those concerns and to work out those concerns has passed.
So what do we do? What would be our logical plan of recourse? Do we contact the neighborhood boards that are down the line of the rail? And do we get them keyed up enough so that they can get support from the community, that we can petition someone in government to say, we don't want steel on steel anymore. We want something simpler that could be just as or even more effective?
Well, first of all, it's our due diligence. If someone came in here and said, I saw a murder, I know who did it, they have to report it. I am a council member who witnessed somebody, what I'm purporting, lied to me and the people and denied us a remedy of recourse to all this mess we're in, because we were told by a governor this was a mess. And so what did we, the people, do? Again, what can we do is first we tell the FTA it's a cease and desist. It's not a null and void. We can correct it with a remedy, allowing the vote back to the people. So I, as the complainant, would say to the FTA, you know what, I don't want to see 100 or so phallic symbols sticking up out of the earth, right? I want this, I want a rail system. I do. I want this rail to succeed.
But why does it have to be so much money?
And well, you know, once people
and cumbersome.
Well, you know, in the last few years, you know, Leningrad in Russia, you know, they're working with the consortium with the Chinese and South Koreans building maglev. Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, building maglev. There's sky.
What is maglev?
Well, magnetic levitation, urban maglev, as in reference. The Federal Transit Administration approves it, and they allow it. And President Obama has been scolding us. You know, this.
So it's being done. It's just not being done here. There's no reason why we can't do this. This is America. There's no reason why the future of travel should lie somewhere else, beyond our borders.
Finally, Beijing plans to introduce Chinese-made maglev trains to ease urban traffic congestion. Municipal authorities confirmed the plan Thursday and said the goal is to cut commuting time within the city's 5th Ring Road to 1 hour by 2015. Maglev trains can reach a speed of up to 500 kilometers an hour, but trains in Beijing will travel at 80 to 100 kilometers an hour for passenger safety. The committee says maglevs are a big improvement over subway.
You know, this is American invented technology from 1966. Americans invented this technology, and basically take some magnets together, and you have this resistance. Well, you just give something a little push, and wow, off it goes. Right. Well, it's so quiet. It's the way of the future that everyone's scrapping their steel wheel. So for us to commit on next 100 years with only 5% of the rail physically up. Now here's the kicker, listeners. We just found out in December, a presentation was made on the Waianae Coast that the so-called technology of our 21st century steel wheel on steel rail. So for us to commit on next 100 years with only 5% of the rail physically up. Now here's the kicker, listeners. We just found out in December, a presentation was made on the Waianae Coast that the so-called technology of our 21st century steel wheel on steel rail can't even make it over the hill. And they're going to use a rack-assisted track system, and crank this baby over the hump. And that's 1800s, folks. 1800 technology from way back when. They had to borrow it from Switzerland. And so this is amazing that finally the truth came out. This so-called rail project,
hang on, caller,
is the only thing 21st century about it, folks, is it's driverless. And once that thing gets running, we're going to be praying somebody starts back driving this thing, right? And its security and just all the other attributes of that feature. Because we're cutting back, no security anymore, probably gonna have to pay for parking, no restrooms anymore, all the stuff they're scaling back, folks, is we are not getting that quality of a product. So if we went to an urban maglev or even a monorail, which the Federal Transit Administration approves, we would find that we could get the full 34-mile segment. We could get it for under the budget. So we would tell the FTA, if you let us go back to a vote, now, real quick, you don't have to change the charter. Any council person could introduce a resolution to become, with 3 readings, 2/3 majority. It would be automatic. Heart, its budget through the council. They could switch the technology today.
So people should contact their council person
Yes.
that they elected. All you people that elected Pinocchio, tell him to vote for the resolution. We've got 2 more callers. Hello, you're on the air.
Yes, my name is Frank Gennadiou. I know Mr. Berg. He knows me. I just wanted to make a couple of points.
Yes, sir.
Back in December of 2006, the City Council did not select a technology. They approved an elevated guideway for the transit system. They then abrogated their responsibility during 2008 and left it up to the mayor to push for steel wheels on steel rail. At that time, the city was trying to equate the term rail with steel wheels on steel rail, even though the FTA recognizes other forms of technology. The ballot question, by the way, was put forward by then Councilman Charles Dejoux, who was an opponent of rail. I'd like to add a couple of other things. The federal full funding grant agreement does not state steel wheels on steel rails. It talks about metro light rail automated driverless. That definition would also apply to monorail or maglev technology. One last point. 10 years ago today, the Council Transportation Chair, Nestor Garcia, was a co-sponsor of a transportation summit at the Mission Memorial Auditorium. That was basically the kickoff rally that led us to a rail transit system. I have suggested to Councilman Manahan's office, he is the transportation chair, that he hold a similar summit and let everybody put their 2 cents in, let it be all day, let it be open to the people. He is probably on his way back from Washington. I haven't heard a response, but just thought I'd pass that on.
What else is new? Thank you.
Frank Gennadiou, he's the man that I worked for as a council person and said, you know what?
I don't know if that looks familiar. That's the header for this brochure. And it was the top of an 8-page glossy brochure the city distributed throughout the island in mid-2008. Its goal was to convince everyone not that familiar with what was going on at Honolulu Hale that the term rail was the same as steel wheels on steel rails. It was a piece of propaganda aimed at voter support in November that year, and it successfully gained a 53-47% margin of victory. But are steel wheels the only rail? This information can be found in the Federal Transit Administration website glossary. On the slide, NTD stands for the National Transit Database. The point is that the city's effort in 2008 was deliberately deceptive and attempted to arbitrarily eliminate other technologies accepted by the FTA as rail. There are several forms of rail and the city knew it. However, I am not sure the voters were aware how they were being manipulated. But this is about commuting and tax paying. We need the best commuter system we can get at the cheapest price, and that's not what we're doing.
There's a better way. We have all these changes in technology, and when he enlightened me at a town hall meeting in August of 2011, and that's what culminated in all this, where we got the community hip out on the west side. So Frank, thank you. I went to the Waianae Neighborhood Board beginning of February, and they unanimously passed exactly what Frank is talking about. We're asking Council Chair of Transportation, Joey Monahan, to hold an informational briefing so all these providers, the dozens of them, what have you, can come and tell us, you know what, folks, you can get a better product, smaller hole, smaller footprint, quieter. Yeah.
But he's going to have to go against his buddies.
Well, you know what, is that when the people see this, because I have YouTubes running right and left, I got so much stuff out there to help educate folks, because Frank is right, they suppressed all exploratory means for us, the people, to look at these ulterior techniques. They called it proprietary. They dismissed it on day one and would not let us look at it, have even a look-see. So now we can look at this again, because I'm finding that this grant was advanced of ill will. Let's get out of this agreement and now open it up, and we, the people, can get into the 21st century.
Well, isn't it? Weren't we allegedly a government of, for, and by the people?
Let's exercise it.
Yeah, I think so.
So why not unanimous decision? Said Manahan. I went to Nanakuli, their transportation committee, unanimous. Let's get it together. Kapolei went to them. They're asking Hart. They're having a town hall meeting, as Frank and I will both be giving presentations.
It's the way it's got to be.
So board by board members, neighborhood board, get your chair to put it on the agenda. And Hesh should see the first person who, of all in the media, who has saw this, read it, and said, aha, this is a Perry Mason moment. We have impropriety. And we do have relief, because when we've been told you can't change this, you can't do that, we're stuck with this, folks, they're the ones pouring the sand over us while we're sinking in quicksand. All we have to do is take the sand out of their hands.
Really? Hey, we have one more. We have another caller. I'm going to take that call in a moment, but I just want to give you guys an email address just in case you would like to voice concerns. That email address is ianderson@honolulu.gov. ianderson@honolulu.gov. Now, bear in mind that his district is Kailua, Kaneohe, and Waimanalo. So after you send the email and after you sign your name, you put down Kailua or Kaneohe or Waimanalo, and he ain't never going to know the difference. 524-1080, hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, gentlemen. Is there any chance that this rail can be stopped on the state level?
The answer is yes. The state has, of its state senate, subpoena powers. And I have written the Senate President and the entire state Senate and said, exercise such. And I'm asking them to call Councilmember Anderson up to the table and say, disclose your sources. Because if he can't, and it is of that I am correct, or he's covering something up, but we need to know that if indeed the state caller did exercise its authority, which they have the powers it means to do so, we would know. We would know immediately. If Councilmember Anderson could disclose the source, we'd say, you know what? Maybe he got misinformed, because someone's head's going to roll. Because if you go to my contacts, whatever, you'll get the same. And all my YouTubes, I put it up there. Here's the link, folks. Read the rules, the administrative guideline of how to amend your full funding grant agreement. And it tells you specifically, folks, a change in scope is your rail system, and it's a big deal. All you got to do is notify both chambers of Congress. There's no penalty. There's no forfeiture. There's no going to the back of the end of the line, threat. And that's where the FTA is saying, look, that's not our jurisdiction. They're not going to come down here running and put the handcuffs on Anderson or anybody. It's us, the people, who have
the final say.
Absolutely. And we just got to rise up and stand up.
You know what's really interesting? And as long as you're on the line, we'll just stay here for a minute.
Sure.
I asked Tom, you know, I see ads on TV about this lady Mangieri or something.
Gina, the reporter.
Yeah, she's an investigative reporter. I said to him, did you ever think of contacting her? And he said, I have contacted everyone in media, and nobody wants to touch it.
They'll lose their sponsors, Hesh.
Yeah, obviously. See, it's like my favorite expression. In God we trust, all others pay cash. You know, so when money is involved, integrity is not involved.
Right.
Do you understand?
Right.
This is what's happening. So where we used to be a government of, for, and by the people, it is now a government of, for, and by the corporation.
Because, I mean, with this city council, they're all croods. There's no good ones. The mayors, this is as bad as we get. This guy's beginning to make Mufi Hanneman look like a choir boy. I mean, this is how low we've become. And then you see him speaking at Foster Botanical Garden, that being the mayor. with the three choices: kill it, tear everything down, raise the property taxes, or increase the GET tax. Of course, he wants to increase the GET tax. So my only hope is that David Ige, who seems to have been somebody fiscally conservative, will somehow or another intervene in this, although it seems like he's all in favor of it just by some of the statements that he's made the few times he makes a TV appearance. But, you know, this thing is going to bankrupt the city. It's going to bankrupt the state. People, I mean, I thought Danny Noy was like the beloved Hawaii son. And now he's blaming Danny Noy, a guy who's been dead for several years, that this is all his fault. I'm surprised you're not blaming Bush over this. Tom, you got to get back into office, brother. This state needs people like you. We're with the exception of a few, we're screwed politically. We're in deep kimchi, as they say. And when I say Mufi Hanneman's looking like a choir boy compared to the person who's making him look like that, folks, we're in big trouble. Gentlemen, God bless you both, and I'll be listening to the show. Thank you, guys.
We got another caller.
Go ahead.
Caller, hold on. You're on the air. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. You do not sound like Ikaika Anderson, but that's okay.
I just got on the radio about 5 minutes ago.
Oh, no, yes.
So anyway, about several things. I did hear Sylvia Luke, the Senate Ways and Means had combined with Sylvia Luke's, she's House Finance Chair. And Sylvia had the same question to Kirk Caldwell that I had, that if we voted on it, we should vote on it again.
Right.
Well, caller, you know, you nailed it, because back in 2011 of November 2nd, Frank, who called in earlier, we did our research. Folks, as soon as I got into office, I responded to Governor Lingo's report, and it took me months to craft this legislation, months. It went back and forth, back and forth. This was to go on the ballot. This was a ballot initiative. It's huge, big document. And so after it finally got put together as a package, you know, you mentioned, you know, the mayor and what everyone else is saying, the right of the people to be able to respond to numbers that don't pan out. I wanted to ask you what I asked the earlier caller. Do you believe that for those 4-year duration, we, the voters, didn't have a right to choose again? Because I'll finish with this in my question. On November 2nd, 2011, Frank and I, and we did our research, it only would have taken 6 months to do what's called a supplemental EIS, supplemental EIS.
What's an EIS?
Of an environmental impact statement. So they already
yeah.
found findings of no significant impact on that earlier for a massive karst hole puncher behemoth steel wheel. Yeah. So this tiny little footprint of an urban maglev is not going to be cumbersome or a problem. It's going to be easier than. So the so-called threat, what you just heard in one of those options, caller, that it can't be done, there'll be too much of, what do we do with Kivit? Well, everything that Frank and I and others are talking about, every rail provider, I've been in touch with many around the world, they say they can keep the same system up, they can do the modification, it's all doable. Let's have the hearing.
And also when I watch the Japanese stations, many years ago already, like Japan has had way advanced technology on the rail, and even to this day. And I did question Ige. I know he's for the rail, and he knows I'm against it, but why such a old-fashioned, antiquated system?
Right.
And somebody, it was on opening session day, so somebody interrupted us, so that I couldn't get an answer, but he did make a sour face that that's true, kind of.
You know why that's sour face? You know why? We all feel it. It's a broken treaty. We read about it in our textbooks, Hesh, and we all say, gosh, dang it, if I was alive back in the 1800s, I wouldn't have stood for this. It's a broken treaty. Somebody,
Here we are.
Here we are. The ink isn't even dry on the current tax scheme. The ink is,
would you be able to be on the radio at 1 o'clock this afternoon?
I'm dedicated 24/7 to this cause right now.
What is
I'm
your
available.
contact number?
I'm at 753-7324, but you're best to find me at an email, tomberg00@yahoo.com.
We have one more. We have another caller. I'm going to take that call in a moment, but I just want to give you guys an email address just in case you would like to voice concerns. That email address is ianderson@honolulu.gov. ianderson@honolulu.gov. Now, bear in mind that his district is Kailua, Kaneohe, and Waimanalo. So after you send the email and after you sign your name, you put down Kailua or Kaneohe or Waimanalo, and he ain't never going to know the difference. 524-1080, hello, you're on the air.
Gentlemen, is there any chance that this rail can be stopped on a state level?
The answer is yes. The state has, of its state senate, subpoena powers. And I have written the Senate President and the entire state Senate and said, exercise such. And I'm asking them to call Councilmember Anderson up to the table and say, disclose your sources. Because if he can't, and it is of that I am correct, or he's covering something up, but we need to know that if indeed the state caller did exercise its authority, which they have the powers it means to do so, we would know. We would know immediately. If Councilmember Anderson could disclose the source, we'd say, you know what? Maybe he got misinformed, because someone's head's going to roll. Because if you go to my contacts, whatever, you'll get the same. And all my YouTubes, I put it up there. Here's the link, folks. Read the rules, the administrative guideline of how to amend your full funding grant agreement. And it tells you specifically, folks, a change in scope is your rail system, and it's a big deal. All you got to do is notify both chambers of Congress. There's no penalty. There's no forfeiture. There's no going to the back of the end of the line, threat. And that's where the FTA is saying, look, that's not our jurisdiction. They're not going to come down here running and put handcuffs on Anderson or anybody. It's us, the people, who have
the final say.
Absolutely. And we just got to rise up and stand up.
You know what's really interesting? And as long as you're on the line, we'll just stay here for a minute.
Sure.
I asked Tom, you know, I see ads on TV about this lady Mangieri or something.
Gina, the reporter.
Yeah, she's an investigative reporter. I said to him, did you ever think of contacting her? And he said, I have contacted everyone in media, and nobody wants to touch it.
They'll lose their sponsors, Hesh.
Yeah, obviously. See, it's like my favorite expression, in God we trust, all others pay cash. You know, so when money is involved, integrity is not involved. Right. Do you understand?
Right.
This is what's happening. So where we used to be a government of, for, and by the people, it is now a government of, for, and by the corporation.
Because, I mean, with this city council, they're all croods. There's no good ones. The mayors, this is as bad as we get. This guy's beginning to make Mufi Hanneman look like a choir boy. I mean, this is how low we've become. And then you see him speaking at Foster Botanical Garden, that being the mayor, with the three choices: kill it, tear everything down, raise the property taxes, or increase the GET tax. Of course, he wants to increase the GET tax. So my only hope is that David Ige, who seems to have been somebody fiscally conservative, will somehow or another intervene in this, although it seems like he's all in favor of it just by some of the statements that he's made the few times he makes a TV appearance. But, you know, this thing is going to bankrupt the city. It's going to bankrupt the state. People, I mean, I thought Danny Noy was like the beloved Hawaii son. And now he's blaming Danny Noy, a guy who's been dead for several years, that this is all his fault. I'm surprised you're not blaming Bush over this. Tom, you got to get back into office, brother. This state needs people like you. We're with exception of a few, we're screwed politically. We're in deep kimchi, as they say. And when I say Mufi Hanneman's looking like a choir boy, compared to the person who's making him look like that, folks, we're in big trouble. Gentlemen, God bless you both, and I'll be listening to the show. Thank you, guys.
I got one more caller. We got less than 4 minutes. Thank you. Yeah, bye. Okay, one more. Hello, you're on the air.
Hesh.
Yeah.
Carl.
Hey, Carl, how you doing?
You muck me down, number 3. And what I'm hoping that can be done is that we need to get copies of this tape So
It's on the internet for you. It's all over. I've plastered it everywhere. The copies of this tape.
yeah, well, can you say something about how we can get a copy of this?
Do you have internet access?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, you know what? Call Hesh after the show, and we'll get you. I'll get you a copy.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'll take care of you.
Yeah, because people have to know the truth, and
Mahalo.
a copy of this program will certainly prove the truth.
Please. Yeah,
Carl, I got one more caller in 3 minutes.
Later, thank you.
3 minutes.
Later, thank you.
Hello. One more. Maybe it's Pinocchio. Hello.
Hello, no, this is not Pinocchio.
Oh, sorry about that.
Mark Terry here. Yeah, anyway, Tom Berg is a hero for this state, and I hope we can elect him governor or something important. But anyway, I just wanted to thank you for your program.
Thank you.
And to say very briefly that if we decide to stop rail right now, regardless of how much it's cost us, that's nothing compared to what it will cost if it goes forward. If it goes forward, the unions will hold the rail hostage, and they will charge however much they want to charge to run it and to maintain it. And that means your property taxes will go sky high if we let it go on and go forward.
It's a never-ending battle, man.
But our plan takes care of them. It takes care of the unions. It takes care of the laborers. It takes care of Ansaldo. It takes care of Kiva. They all get a piece of the pie in this, but we can do everything. The spurs to Moalani, spur to Waikiki, we can do this way under budget by simply opening the door, folks, to all the technology. Get out there and Google it. You'll see urban maglev is the way of the future.
So we got about 1 minute left, and first of all, I have to thank Tom for being here. It was amazing. Second of all, Anderson at honolulu.gov, and tell them don't let the door hit you in the Ecoli on the way out. And contact, I think it's Jay Manahan at honolulu.gov. Tell him you're the guy. Have a hearing. Yeah. We want to change the situation. People, if you don't get active, nothing is going to happen. You can put it in the hands of one person, two people. It doesn't matter. This is a government of, for, and by the people. Bring back the Constitution. Respect the people of this country, and let's get active. I don't know what else to say. Anyway, Tom, thank you for doing this. This is such a pleasure that you were here today. And I'm just a little guy. Maybe Anderson is right. Maybe there's only two listeners, you and me. But that being the case, at least somebody has got the guts to bring it out to the public, because the regular media, the politicians, nobody wants to touch it. Why? Because they're all afraid of their own shadows. Closing words, I got 15 seconds.
We have a breach of contract. It was advanced in bad faith. It was misrepresented. We, the people, have to exercise our authority to get out of it, and I'm trying to help you.
Folks, catch you all next week if I'm still alive. Aloha.
The mayor called the $350,000 state report by Infrastructure Management Group a waste of taxpayer dollars. He said the lead author has a national reputation as a hired gun against rail.
It is no surprise the report is a predetermined anti-rail rant.
Carlisle.
The rail, steel on steel, it is incredibly ironic that the thinking behind this movement to alleviate traffic congestion by using 19th century technology to address 21st century needs is What happened? Who dropped the ball?